Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome FAA Administrator Michael Huerta.
Well, good evening, everyone. It's really great to be back at Communicating for Safety, and I'm really honored to be here. This is such a wonderful conference and such a great event that really celebrates the great work that we all do together to ensure a safe and efficient national airspace system. I'd like to start out by reading a note that came from a pilot that a few of you helped. And it goes like this. I've started this email at least a dozen times. It's hard to put into words the emotions, the relief, and the gratitude I feel for the St. Louis approach control personnel, but more specifically, an air traffic controller named Mark Shad. Hard IFR was what I was flying when I began losing my vacuum while westbound around the Indiana-Illinois border. I announced to St. Louis approach control that I was losing vacuum pressure and would like to be diverted to the nearest airport. The controller I spoke to directed me to a close airport with an instrument approach, and when I pulled up the approach plates, I learned that the weather was below decision height. And shortly thereafter, I lost all vacuum pressure. So you see where this is going. He's all alone, and he's in trouble. He continued, when I next spoke to St. Louis approach control, I spoke to Mark Shad, who informed me that he was taking all responsibilities from me. And all he wanted me to do was one thing, and that was to fly the plane. He gave me a heading to Alton, Illinois, which had an ILS approach. He made sure I made only standard rate turns or less and maintained my attitude and altitude. And when it came time to intercept the glide slope, he monitored and talked me through interception, through capture, and through descent. At the very least, I can honestly say that Mark was instrumental in my successful landing at Alton, and more likely was instrumental in saving my life. Now, the pilot goes on in his email to express his appreciation for the professional service that he received, and he praises the skill and the ability of all of you as our controllers. I've seen a handful of notes like these over the 6 years I've been in the agency, and they always bring into sharp focus what we do and why we do it. There's a traffic situation display in my office, and it's covered with a lot of dots, pictures of airplanes that crawl across the screen. And it's notes like this one that I just read that remind me that those blips are people. But they also remind me that every one of those people are in very good hands, thanks to the controllers like all of you. The truth of the matter is that sometimes a controller is the pilot's only lifeline. When the plane fails, the controller is capable. When the pilot struggles, the controller is calm. When the weather is bad, the controller sees clearly. And it's in moments like this that seconds count, and there's no time to reach for a manual. Controllers call upon their training, you call upon your teammates, and do what you can to make sure that the pilots and the passengers get home safely to their families. It's been said that today's preparation determines tomorrow's achievement, and because you're prepared, you are able to deliver when the unexpected occurs. Somebody was recently telling me about an airline pilot who was convinced that he had trained and flown his entire career for a 30-second incident that his aircraft encountered a microburst. And that pilot said that all of the thousands of hours of experience culminated in a moment that determined whether we all went home that night to our families safely, or we ended up as the lead story in the evening news. And everybody in this room knows exactly what he's talking about. So I'd like to thank the men and women receiving awards tonight. And we should all recognize everyone who was nominated. Just having your name mentioned in this conversation says a lot about you, and it says a lot about how you get your job done. And I also want to thank our entire controller workforce for everything you do to keep our system as the safest and the most efficient in the world. Many of you know that Matt Lauer from the Today Show recently had the opportunity to visit JFK Tower. Referring to the job that you do, he said something I think very important. He said that's one of those jobs that you hear about only when something goes wrong. But on a daily basis, they do that job so well, day in and day out. The FAA and NATCA are very, very proud of all of you. I value the partnership that our organizations have forged. Together, we've raised the bar. We've collaborated on many safety programs and many campaigns. Campaigns like the Air Traffic Safety Action Program, or ATSAP, like the great work that you have done in professional standards. Programs like Tune Off, Tune In, and Fully Charged. You know, since ATSAP was started 8 years ago, you've submitted more than 110,000 safety reports. And the direct result is that we've been able to take more than 150 corrective actions. We've launched a new campaign called Take a Stand for Safety to address key safety topics like soliciting and sharing up-to-date weather information so pilots and controllers can make the best possible decision. And we've also put the Respect campaign in place, which focuses on ensuring a workplace with dignity, with support and respect between all individuals that work together to maintain a safe national airspace system. And just as we work together on safety and workplace culture, we've also made great progress on modernizing our air traffic system. You all know that last year we completed the deployment of the en route automation modernization. We're working together on terminal automation modernization and replacement. And Datacom is now operational at 12 towers, one ahead of schedule. And we've committed that we will have the 50 largest terminal facilities done by the end of this year. We've safely reduced wake separation standards at 14 locations. And so as we look to the future, we need to turn our attention and our partnership toward addressing the issues involved with the integration of unmanned aircraft into the airspace. You know, just last week, I was down in Austin at South by Southwest. Who would have thought the FAA administrator would be at South by Southwest? And I was told to wear blue jeans and cowboy boots, which I did. But you know, during my comments, I noted that aviation hasn't seen such a rapid pace of innovation since the days that were immediately following the Second World War, when jet engines ushered us into what we now call the jet age. And I told the audience that the challenge that we have as we integrate unmanned aircraft is that we have to overcome a pace where we have an industry that's moving at the speed of one's imagination, and we are moving at the pace of government. Now, many of you are old enough to remember TV ads with the slogan, "This isn't your father's Oldsmobile." Well, I would like to think this is not your father's FAA. Across all of our lines of business, we're working smarter and we're working much more efficiently. If we're doing something because we've always done it this way, it's probably time for us to think about doing it very differently. Now, until now, with unmanned aircraft or drones, we've been very, very focused on the regulatory side. We're going to issue the rule for small unmanned aircraft systems later this spring. I'm very, very excited about that. On the research side, we're working to develop detect and avoid technologies. And in the meantime, we've authorized more than 4,200 operations on a case-by-case basis for purposes like precision agriculture, power line and flare stack inspection, and movie and pro football practice filming. But we can never compromise on safety. And we need to remain very focused on technology and operational standards that ensure that an accident can't happen. But as we move toward true integration, we recognize that there is a need for controllers to be more involved. And it needs to be a joint effort between all of us, the FAA and NATCA. And to that end, we're making sure you're a partner in our Pathfinder 4 initiative for unmanned aircraft. It's an effort to develop a technology that enables us to detect rogue drones around airports and around other critical infrastructure facilities. And we need you to be involved with the testing and evaluation of any new technologies because ultimately it's you that's using this information to maintain safe operations. And then we'll need to consider how to add unmanned aircraft as a component to our basic and our recurrent controller training programs. The bottom line is this: you're critical to aviation safety, and we want you to have all the tools you'll need so you can be prepared for any situation in the National Airspace System. And as our award winners tonight have shown us, it is exactly that preparation that makes such a big difference. So let me close by simply saying thank you. Thank you for what you do each and every day. And I look forward with great anticipation as we continue to work together to mitigate safety risk, to modernize the system, and to address whatever new challenge is going to get thrown at us. There's no question in my mind that all of you are up to that task. And the proof of that is found in our unparalleled safety record. We all know that it's a direct result of the dedication and the professionalism of our controller workforce and the great work that you do each and every day. I began by reading a note by the pilot who was so thankful to the controller that got him home safely. I can tell you that personally, I rest a whole lot easier at night knowing that controllers such as those in that situation and all of you in this room are standing watch in our towers and in our radar rooms all across the country. And that same thought is true of the millions of passengers who board their flights, and they're worried about a lot of things. Typically, whether they got stuck in the middle seat or if the onboard internet is going to work. But I can tell you, the vast majority of them are not worrying about whether they're in good hands and whether they will be safe. And that is a credit to all of you. So like all of you, I hope that your shifts are not memorable, but if they are, I know that we're in very good hands. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.